Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. Well, might as well start off with a bit of good news here. Randy Moss made the announcement. He says, your boy has beat cancer. So, didn't know a ton about what was going on with him, but I know he was dealing with some health issues, cancer issues and whatnot. Haven't heard anything for a little while, and apparently things are looking up for him, so glad to hear that. Also, I had kind of mentioned this yesterday a little bit. Jermichael Finley's kid is going to be a wide receiver over at Notre Dame. I want to elaborate on that, though, because that's just a very small portion of what's crazy about this story. Not only is Jermichael Finley's kid going to be playing at Notre Dame as a wide receiver, but so is Jerome Bettis' son, Jerome Bettis Jr., will be playing wide receiver for Notre Dame. But that's not all. Larry Fitzgerald's son, Devin Fitzgerald, is a 4-star receiver in the 2026 class who committed to Notre Dame. But that's not all. Plaxico Burress' son, Elijah Burress, is a 3-star wide receiver in the 2025 class, set to be on the 2026 roster. So, potentially, I don't know what the starting roster is going to look like, you're going to have, as your receivers, Jerome Bettis Jr., Devin Fitzgerald, Caden Finley, and Elijah Burress, all sons of, two Hall of Famers, Larry Fitzgerald and Jerome Bettis, and 2 Super Bowl champions in Plaxico Burress and Jermichael Finley. But that's just the wide receivers. They also have a tight end by the name of James Flanagan, who is the son of former Notre Dame and NFL defensive lineman Jim Flanagan. They have a defensive end by the name of Bryce Young, who is the son of Hall of Fame defensive lineman Bryant Young. And their quarterback, C.J. Carr, is grandson of the legendary Michigan head coach, Lloyd Carr. I think he is going to be the starting quarterback. So, pretty wild, that Notre Dame class. Again, we'll see. I don't know. For example, Caden Finley, Jermichael's kid, is a 4-star recruit. Elijah Burress, Plaxico's kid, is a 3-star receiver. Devin Fitzgerald is a 4-star. I don't know what Jerome Bettis is. Let me see if I can find out real quick. Oh, he's a 3-star recruit. So there's no, unranked guys here that just happen to be, a Hall of Famer's kid, but outside of that, they suck. So, we'll see. In addition, a couple other interesting ones. Obviously, we know Shadur and Shiloh, which, that's come and gone, but that was one that everybody was aware of. A couple other kids of or relatives of people you may know. At Rice University, they have E.J. Warner, son of Kurt Warner. Chad Pennington's son, Cole Pennington, is at Marshall. Matt Hasselbeck's son, Henry Hasselbeck, is at UCLA. Is at or was. I think this extends back to last year, but I'm just going through it. It's interesting anyways. Emmett Smith's son, E.J. Smith, is at Texas A&M. Edgerrin James's son, Eden James, is at Howard. Antonio Gates' son, Antonio Gates Jr., is at Michigan State. Muhsin Muhammad's son, Moose Muhammad III, is at Texas A&M. Donald Driver's son, Christian Driver, is at Minnesota. Jason Taylor's son, Mason Taylor, is at LSU. By the way, I didn't mention, obviously, the quarterbacks, Kurt Warner, Chad Pennington, Matt Hasselbeck, their sons are all quarterbacks. Emmett Smith and Edgerrin James' sons are running backs. Antonio Gates, Muhsin Muhammad, and Donald Driver's kids are wide receivers. So Antonio Gates Jr. is not a tight end. He's a wide receiver. Jason Taylor's son, Mason Taylor, is a tight end at LSU. Willis McGahee's son, Willis McGahee IV, is a defensive end or linebacker, at Nebraska. Rodney Harrison, his son Christian Harrison, is at Tennessee as a DB. Brian Urlacher's son, Kennedy Urlacher, is a safety at Notre Dame, so there's another Notre Dame guy. Josh McCown's son, is a quarterback at UTSA. Owen McCown. Mark Bruner's son, Carson Bruner, is a Washington linebacker. There's probably others, but that's what I was able to gather. What is this? No, there's a couple more. AJ Vinatieri, Adam Vinatieri's kid, is a kicker at Louisville. Trey Kirkpatrick's kid, Trey Kirkpatrick Jr., is a safety at Alabama. Anthony Becht, his kid is a quarterback at Iowa State. Rocco, I think that's all of them, though. But yeah, man, everybody's kids are getting into football. I think the more interesting question is, who of these kids could the Packers potentially be looking at? Not a lot of corners. Jason Taylor's kid, Isaiah Taylor, is listed as a DB. I don't know if that's corner or safety. Same goes for Christian Harrison, Rodney Harrison's kid. You can maybe get Willis McGahee the fourth as another edge rusher. But I saw somebody post that about Notre Dame having all those, and I was like, you're lying. There's no way. Turns out it's true and more. The report came out that the NFL's 18-game season expansion is going to be put on hold at least until 2026. I never really expected it to take place this year, obviously. I mean, I feel like we're about to get the season started. In fact, it's more encouraging than discouraging for those of us that want the expansion. The fact that it's like, oh, we got to push it back to maybe next year. Like, really? It could be as early as next? That's crazy. Okay, yeah. The delay is primarily due to ongoing discussions regarding player health and safety, as well as negotiations relating to collective bargaining agreement between the NFL and NFLPA. Obviously, the concerns being player welfare and workload management. The CBA, collective bargaining agreement, does actually allow, so the CBA was agreed upon in 2020, it allows for the possibility of an 18-game season, but there needs to be agreement between the league and the players' union. Both sides are still negotiating terms related to compensation benefits and scheduling adjustments that would accompany an expanding schedule. So, I mean, that's not that I would have thought it was impossible, but again, the news that this is being pushed back is making it feel closer. Because, I mean, look, as I've said, this is a done deal. It's going to happen. Everybody knows it's going to happen. I think the players' union knows it's going to happen. It's just a question of we got to make sure we get the best deal for ourselves possible. There's going to be more revenue. Players are going to want a piece of that pie in one fashion or another. They're going to want concessions in terms of how this is all structured. I've already said what I would prefer. Let's just bump it up 2 games and add one of them as a bye week. Let's just skip ahead because it's a concession. First of all, you're getting 2 additional weeks, which is increased revenue. You're also pushing the season back further, which closes that gap of non-football, the gap we're in right now. And it's also a concession to the players, giving them a second bye week. You give 1 early bye week. Everybody gets 1 early and 1 late bye week. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, the way that they're talking about this delay certainly makes it sound like as early as next year, this could already be a thing. So we'll see, how aggressively they approach this. I mean, the negotiations are obviously ongoing. The NFLPA and the NFL are going to be talking about this throughout the entire season. But I have a feeling talks are going to start to ramp up, especially as the season winds down and comes to an end, to really push for a 2026 change. Obviously, it would have to happen prior to the schedule. I don't know exactly how that all gets worked out. When do they start putting the schedule together and how flexible can that be? Another thing to consider is if they did do it the way that I would say that they should do it, if everybody has 2 bye weeks, that also makes it a little bit easier for the NFL to keep cramming these international games down everybody's throats, because it's much easier to put that prior to a bye week when you have 2 bye weeks. All right, why don't we take a break here? I want to come back and look at Mark Murphy's final take 5 as Mark Murphy's career with the Green Bay Packers officially winds down. He's got just a little over 2 weeks left in his tenure here. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so this is pretty hilarious, kind of right off the bat here. So Murphy takes 5. The title is Hasta La Vista, Baby. And he starts this off by saying, I'm sure many of you are thinking, what the heck does hasta la vista baby mean, and why are you using it for my last Murphy Takes 5 column? Hey, Mark, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Roughly 0 people are having that problem right now. Not knowing what hasta la vista baby means, where it comes from, and how it's applicable to this being your last column. He says, well, it's Spanish for see you later or goodbye for now. It's also a famous Arnold Schwarzenegger line in Terminator 2. For those of you kids who are unfamiliar with this little-known project from the 90s known as Terminator 2, thank you, Mark. But he says, so it's a chance to say goodbye to the best fans in all of professional sports, and I do hope that I'll be able to see many of you down the road. Says it's also a tribute to his father, Big Murph. For reasons that I'm not quite sure of, he used that phrase often. He says Big Murph, his dad, was a larger-than-life character who served in the Army during World War II, played football at St. Bonaventure, yes, the Bonnies once had a football team, and had a long career in labor relations. He had these sayings that he called pearls of wisdom, like don't burn bridges, build them, that he would use all the time. When I was younger, I thought they were so corny. As I got older, I realized that there was a lot of truth and wisdom in them. I'm often asked by fans what my regrets are in my career, and at the end of my tenure, not being able to win a Super Bowl with Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur was a big regret, especially considering how close we were in a couple of those years. Very early in my tenure, I had more personal but larger regret. After I was named president in 2007, we had 2 home playoff games. Given his football background and love of the game, I know my father would have loved to watch a game at Lambeau Field. He was all set to come to one of the playoff games, but we decided to wait until September and the next season when the weather would be better and it would be easier to travel. Sadly, Big Murph died of brain cancer in June and never made it to Lambeau Field. I now have another pearl of wisdom, though. Never pass up the opportunity to spend time with family and friends. Enough about regrets. I'm also asked what I am most proud of during my tenure. Obviously, winning the Super Bowl XLV is high on that list, especially since we are the sixth seed. I hope that I have left the Packers in better shape than when I started. I think the improvements we have made to Lambeau Field, South End Zone concourse renovations, new football and administrative offices, and opening in a few weeks, a new locker room for the team, have been enhancements that have not taken away from what makes Lambeau Field special. I'm proud of the impact we have made in the community, both through donations and nonprofits, and with the development of Titletown, and more recently, the hosting of the NFL Draft. I think we've left the organization positioned for continued success with the leadership of Ed Policy, Brian Gutekunst, Matt LaFleur, and Russ Ball. Lastly, I'm very proud we have strengthened the connection that our fans have with the team through 2 stock sales, adding more than 426,000 owners, and the creation of the Packers Everywhere program, thanks to my daughter Emily and Blue State Digital. As I head into retirement, I want to thank our fans for the great support of the team. Because of our fans, serving as president of the Packers is the best job in the NFL. It has been an honor and privilege to work for you. Now on to your questions, and hasta la vista, baby. Down in the Q&A section, he was asked, trying to cut through a lot of the jibber-jabber, what part of game day experience will miss the most after retiring? Also, how does an owner watch a game versus a regular fan? Are there things you look for in particular from the team or fan reactions? I know you're not a regular owner in the sense that you have played in the NFL and won a Super Bowl, but I assume there are some commonalities. Thank you for your time and enjoy retirement. He says, in terms of game day experience, I love to get to the stadium early, 3 to 4 hours before kickoff, walk around the stadium. There's a good chance to see what kind of experience fans have before the game and to interact with fans. I watched the game in a small box on the 7th floor with Brian Gutekunst, Russ Ball, and Ed Policy. We would watch the games like most fans, but we have more at stake, and we know more about the coaches and players. I would also like to see how our coaches and players make adjustments as the game unfolds. Got a great question here from a classic Packer fan. Not really a question, but it says, a question from Sam, the long time Packer fan since 1966. It's time, Gutekunst. This is Mark Murphy, but okay. Call Cincinnati and get Trey Hendrickson. He spelled his name wrong. You have the money to bring him in. Don't F this up. He can change the whole defense, and you know damn well he can. Don't F up this time. Fix the defense with one move, a-hole. It's funny how they didn't, bleep that part out. The effing part they did. The response is just, no question, Sam, but thanks for your input. So, again, this is the problem I have with the just bring in the big name guys. The type of people that do these things are the type of people that message in, they send a message to someone else, Gutekunst, on Mark Murphy's email or whatever, inbox, on his last go-away thing, not even realizing it, I just care about what I care about, and I want to talk about what I want to talk about, and believing that I'm going to make some kind of a difference by swearing at everybody. You don't even know how to spell the name of the person you're asking for. You put an X. It's not Hendrickson, as in Jimi Hendrix's son. He can change the whole defense. No. He can maybe improve one facet of the defense. You know damn well he can. Again, no. Don't F up this time. Fix the defense with one move, a-hole. Well, the defense isn't broken. The defense actually did a pretty good job. And again, the problem with these types of fans is there's only good if you do what I say, and it's only bad if you don't. The fact that he's an older player doesn't matter. The cost doesn't matter. The trade compensation we'd be giving up doesn't matter. The fact that the value of Hendrickson drops to 0 after a year or two when he's out of the league, while we're still paying down the cost not only of his contract, but also the cost of losing the players that we would have acquired in all those years they would have been on this team, remains a negative cost. None of these things matter. The only thing that matters is I want him. I'm a child, and I think that without him, we are worthless, terrible, horrible defense, horrible team, horrible staff, horrible everybody, and with him, we win Super Bowls, and everything's wonderful. It's so silly. There's no nuance anywhere in this stuff. There's no ability of these people to look at themselves and realize they're nowhere near as brilliant as they think they are. Tim C. says, what the hell are you doing, or actually not? Are you serious about Super Bowl possibilities? You got rid of Alexander. Now Jalen Ramsey just got traded to the Steelers, and by the way, he's better than anyone on our roster in the corner. That doesn't look like you're serious about Super Bowl appearance. Oh, boy. I don't mind making fun of these people because there's no way they listen to this podcast. There's just no way. They listen to ESPN radio in the morning. By the way, hilariously, I have a clip that's been sitting here forever that I believe is from ESPN, obviously. That is almost this exact sentiment, that the Packers are not serious about actually wanting to win. But I mean, do we have to go over this again? This is so stupid. Jalen Ramsey got traded for way too much to a team that is desperate. You're saying we're not serious about having Super Bowl... The Super Bowl is not possible because we got rid of Jair Alexander, who hasn't played for us in a very long time, and because we didn't get Jalen Ramsey. The Super Bowl was possible last year, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that. Again, it's so black and white. Either it's like, you do everything I say, and it's virtually a guarantee that we win, or it's impossible. I'm so sorry for the negative fans. It's not impossible for the Packers to win the Super Bowl this year. And Jalen Ramsey with Jair together on this team does not guarantee a Super Bowl. Again, this comes back to the whole, the standard is the Super Bowl, and a complete misunderstanding of what that means. These fans view not winning the Super Bowl as a failure, a fireable offense, rather than a goal you aspire to. He says, yes, Tim, I am serious about Super Bowl possibilities. We have a young team, 2 years in a row, the youngest in the league with 2 playoff appearances. That is well coached and should make significant progress this year. And I love how he's just like, this very much reminds me of the whole Turlet Bowl thing. Guy just says the most ridiculous, stupid nonsense, and he's just like, yeah, so anyways, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but here's the deal. You actually believe we're going to win? Yeah, I mean, we're young, and we went to the playoffs 2 years in a row as the youngest team in football, which is pretty good. We're doing good. We're on the right track. Things are going well. Final question, what has been the most memorable, favorite moment for your career with the Packers and why? First, winning the Super Bowl in Dallas. A close second, getting to announce our first-round pick in this year's NFL Draft. For both, they were rewards for all the hard work that so many people in the organization put forth. The draft was also tremendous publicity for the Green Bay community and the entire state of Wisconsin. And with that, that is going to be probably about the last big thing Mark Murphy does. There will maybe be some send-off event. I'm not entirely sure, but like I said, he's probably spending a lot of time relaxing, golfing. Not sure he's massively involved with a lot of things. He might be. I'm just saying. I could see that being a situation where they're kind of just handing over pretty much everything to Ed Policy at this point, which would make sense. I mean, you don't want his responsibilities to be zero, and then on that date, like, now you have to do everything. It would be a good idea to slowly add and add and add to the point where he's doing 90% of the work at this stage. Ed Policy, that is. But I think I'm a fan of Mark Murphy, always have been. I don't know why so many people seem to dislike the guy. I think his very laid-back attitude and demeanor rubbed people the wrong way, as though he was somehow incompetent. I don't know why. I guess you got to be a hard-nosed, crazy person to be good at your job or something. I don't know. But all right, why don't we take our final break? And I tell you what, why don't we take calls on the other side? Because I want to save some of this other stuff for when we have a little bit more time. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Howdy, this is Jared, the Uber driver from Texas.
Yo.
So you were just talking about conspiracy theories.
Mm-hmm.
I had an Uber in my vehicle the other day. We were having a good conversation, and we went down some rabbit hole where we ended up talking about conspiracy theories. And I asked him, so basically, is the Earth round or flat? And he's like, well, I don't believe that it's like flat. I believe there's hills and stuff. But, I don't know if it's really round. Like, I don't even know if we went to the moon and stuff. I'm like, oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, no. And luckily, this was right before I dropped him off, so I didn't have to say too much about that. And, yeah, so I thought that was kind of funny, talking about conspiracy theories.
Yeah, and look, without getting down the rabbit hole and sounding like I'm supporting or whatever, I don't know anything either. I haven't seen it, the things that are necessary to see, although, again, you get up in a plane, there's curvature, well, the windows, whatever. It's like I talk about with football all the time. Everything's just percentages. I don't know that George Washington lived. Never met the guy. No idea. There might be some grand conspiracy to create him. But the amount of work it would take compared to the necessary requirements for what it would take. Let me think how to rephrase that. Let's just leave it with very improbable that everything that would need to happen happened. Because I'm not seeing a reason why we would need to create that. I mean, I don't know, but I would assume that there are documents all over the world referencing George Washington from around the same time period because of when he lived. Their family lineages and people that knew him and their relatives and all these kinds of things. It's very unlikely. The Earth being flat thing, you understand that everything and everyone that is involved with anything to do with space would have to be involved in this conspiracy. Not only is every single human being in NASA, every student involved in the sciences, in any astral field, but this goes to SpaceX launching hundreds or thousands of satellites, but essentially pretending that they're launching satellites because the entire science behind these satellites, that we can actually see in the sky, flying across the sky, is that they're orbiting the globe at like 17,000 miles an hour. Every one of these things are being tracked. These satellites can then see all the way around the globe. Everyone that's been in space, everyone that's sent someone to space, every ship designed to go into space. Everything is centered around a spherical, I know it's not perfectly round, but some kind of spherical Earth. And all the gravitational pulls and all the things that are around that. Every bit of science is based on that understanding. It seems unlikely that the flat Earth reality would parallel the science so perfectly that we could be this wrong and still shoot people up into space and then have them go around the world and come back. And it's like we can do all these things and just not notice it properly. And again, either that and or everybody's in on it and lying about it. So that is the massive amount that you're going to have to prove to me is actually being done, and then the reason is why. If that why doesn't meet the magnitude of the what, then I'm not going to believe it. And I don't even know where to begin with what the reason could possibly be about why we're lying. And by the way, every country in the world, China, Russia, they're all lying. Everybody's in on this secret. Not one person wants to come forward and tell the truth. Although I'm sure there's somebody out there who's like, I worked with the Russians back in 1959. Some guy with dementia is out there spilling the beans. But I always want to give some level of credence to these things because it's not impossible. Going to the moon, I mean, I understand why, right? We're in some kind of a race and all that, but again, how many hundreds or thousands of people are involved in this big scam? And by the way, we've sent people up in rockets that have exploded. The heck are we doing that for? And where did the rocket go that we sent up into space that these guys were on? Where did that go? Obviously, nobody was actually in it, but like, where did it go? I don't know. I just random questions. So I don't want to just completely dismiss things, but you have got a lot of work. You've got to cover a lot of ground to get me to accept these things. And I think a lot of people, they don't actually have a very high bar of what you need to prove. Just a couple videos of like, isn't this crazy? And they just believe it. Did you know that there's that point that like we can't get past because you get radiation or whatever? Like, yeah. Did you know that, look at the technology now, can't even do this, and back then you're saying we could do that? It's like, it's weird, but it's possible. Some people are like, boom, I'm in. That's it. You got me. Dang. I don't know the answer, so it must be true. Dang. Again, be more skeptical, all right?
Yeah, no, and I think the worst thing about conspiracy theorists, especially like flat earthers, is they'll say that, oh, you're indoctrined. You are too much into the school system. You just believe whatever they tell you and you don't do any tests yourself. What is that? Like,
well, again, it's possible that the school system is, you don't even have to say lying, because there can be just a current understanding. I mean, school teachers, what do? They go to school and they learn from people in the school system how to teach people. So if it's incorrect, they're going to be taught incorrect, and then they're going to teach you incorrectly. Doesn't have to be a massive conspiracy, and sometimes schools do get things wrong, and sometimes they even push things that are not necessarily true. Sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for nefarious reasons. I remember being, very early ages, kindergarten-ish, and they were like, oh yeah, the Indians and the English, they were best friends, and they hung out and they ate corn together, and it was wonderful. That's not true. But they said it because we're little kids, and it's like, let's not overwhelm them with the mass murder and scalpings on day one of kindergarten. You know what I mean? Like, let them just be friends for now. We'll tell them the truth later. But again, the fact that it's possible that we've got some things wrong doesn't mean that every conspiracy theory is true. And if you ask for proof, like very sound proof, before just accepting some random person in the backseat of your car telling you stuff, that doesn't make you maybe it makes me indoctrinated, sure. The funny thing about indoctrination, you know what the difference between indoctrination and education is? Whether you believe it's true. It's the only difference. Yes, we've been indoctrinated. That's what education is. It's indoctrination. The question is whether it's true, and you assume that most of it's true. And you know that some of it isn't. And if you're very interested, you can look into stuff. But these people saying, well, you haven't done your own tests, they haven't done them either. They just watched YouTube videos of other people doing them and saying, there, it was successful, and they believe it. Just as blindly as they're claiming you believe the school system. There are a lot of things I heard in school that I was extremely skeptical of and am to this day, including the way we do education, I think is stupid. The fact that we spend decades sending kids to school for decades to do stuff that you could learn in a couple years, most of which is useless information. And I feel like this is a massive thing that could be very easily fixed, and I'm shocked that nobody wants to fix it until I remember that nobody actually sends their kids to school for education. They send their kids to school for daycare so that they can go to work and make money. And that's why kids need to, from a very young age, and it keeps getting younger, go to school, be taken care of during the hours that generally adults go to work, and then come home, preferably fed, so they don't have to do anything. And they do that until they're adults and move out of my house. But in a perfect world, we would care a lot about education. We would change the way that we're doing things. But still, you can't just say something crazy and then if somebody doesn't believe you, say that, well, that's because you're indoctrinated. Okay. Whatever. That's okay, great.
I remember watching a video about debunking a guy who said that moonlight makes things cooler. And the real reason is because the sun is gone. Or not gone on the other side there. Or
sure, yeah.
Whatever. But the sun is no longer emitting heat. So therefore, the moonlight is quote unquote cooler.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's just the atmosphere being cooler because there's no more sun. But, I don't know. It's crazy to me that...
And by the way, that's a decent example, kind of a exaggerated example, but a decent example of how conspiracies work to begin with. Again, all it takes is, bro, isn't it crazy? Here's a chart that shows, like, the brightness of the moon on one axis and the temperature on the other, and you can see as the brightness of the moon goes up, the temperature of the Earth, at least from where you're measuring it, goes down. Bro, isn't that crazy? And there's 3 responses. 1, yes, that's crazy, and I'm all in on your crazy conspiracy theory. 2 would be to just kind of solve the riddle for yourself like you did. Or 3, in the case where you can't just know, which is the case most of the time, you don't know why that thing's there or if it's even true what they're saying. But you can very simply say, that's interesting. Correlation, causation, all that stuff, not very interesting. You're kind of a weirdo. Need more information. In other words, yeah, I'm not in yet, but that's a cute chart you got there. That's wonderful. I love it. It's so good.
People think that they're doing tests even though there's other explanations for it. Anyways.
We see these stats, trying to bring it back to football a little bit here. We see this in football, though, again, all the time. And I point these out all the time. I mean, it's kind of like, the heck was that one? I'll always bring it up. It's when the Vikings went out and got, I can't remember his name, the pass rusher. He's done the rounds. He was at the Bears and all this other stuff. But somebody had put out this propaganda when the Vikings, it wasn't even like a Vikings person, but it was like a national media thing because it was a big deal. The Vikings got this great pass rusher. And it was the dumbest thing. It was something like a very specific year range from weeks 3 through 12. He's been the greatest pass rusher. Like it was so ridiculous. Why? I mean, yes, again, the numbers do bear that out. And if you look at it and don't scrutinize it in any way, which, by the way, anytime you see these little charts for sports, check. Usually up on the top, it tells you what specifically you're looking at. So you'll see a chart, but you won't know exactly what the time scale is and all. So it'll say years 2013 through 2024, weeks, regular season, whatever. First of all, if it doesn't say that, I don't know. Until you tell me that, I'm not interested. But any chart should tell you that. It shouldn't have any weird, unnecessary criteria. If it says, home games or things like that, that's you adding a criteria that is going to skew the information we actually want unnecessarily. You're making the output worse by adding something. I could understand where, you just say, okay, who's scored the most points in 2024? You could say, well, we could make it better by adding or subtracting something. But I understand where you would just come out with, like, this is the baseline information and this is it. Okay, that's fine. But deliberately adding something that is arbitrary and out of nowhere and it makes the data worse, is you just trying to put a spin on something and it's stupid. And that's conspiracy theories in a nutshell. It's harvesting all these little bits of data and putting it together and making it look like this very cohesive, like 5,000-page manual that in and of itself can seem really convincing until you realize the infinite nature of information and the fact that if you cherry pick all the information in the world, you can put together pretty massive things. One of the things that I watch once in a while, it comes up with all my police watching stuff, is the sovereign citizen people. And I remember, I just always think to myself, how are there so many of these people still? How do they believe this crap? Same group. It's nothing more than a conspiracy. It's twisting some bits of information, cherry picking other bits of information, and stitching it all together to seem as though they're kind of making sense. I'm not driving, I'm traveling. Bro, do you know what traveling in a vehicle is called? Driving is a mode of traveling. It's a specific subset of traveling. It's what happens when you travel in an automobile, which is what you're doing. You are driving. Well, the Black's Law, you're an idiot. Sorry, you guys get me started on this stuff.
I went on a tangent there. Go Pack Go.
Yep.
Bye.
We'll get his second one in here real quick, and then we'll call it.
Howdy, this is Jerry, the Uber driver from Texas
Yo.
again. I know you kind of liked my joke from last time, so here's another one. I think they're called anti-jokes, but
Okay.
Jack pushed his sister Jill on the swing. She fell down. Why? Because she had no arms. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's not Jill. Go Pack Go. Have a good day.
Yeah, that's good. So I immediately ran to the robot. I'm asking some questions about anti-jokes, because I've never heard that before. And as best as I can tell, it's kind of an anti-joke. An anti-joke essentially is just a joke where the punchline is, like, it's not a joke, it's just the answer. So it's kind of an anti-joke with a dark humor twist, I guess. So I was like, all right, well, tell me one. And they're really bad at trying, without basically just copying, pasting the whole thing and changing a couple details. But the funny thing is, they really leaned into the dark part more so than the anti-joke part, which is when it started to get a little bit funny. Completely unnecessarily dark. Like, this, I'm not even, it's not funny, but person made cookies with people. Keep trying, AI. Jokes are not your forte. All right, that'll be a good way to test AI in the future. Tell me a funny anti-joke. By the way, almost all of them immediately came back with, why did the chicken cross the road to get to the other side? Which, there's a theory that's actually not an anti-joke, that the funny get to the other side means like get to heaven, die, whatever. But leaving that aside, that would be an anti-joke. All right, I'm out of here. Still got 2 weeks and 2 days, so hang in there. Footballs are coming. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.